I'm Sarah Smith. I'm the Home at Last case manager and outreach coordinator at Back Bay Mission. So I know in the last video we posted, we talked about doing an update on my client with cancer that we had gotten housed. And unfortunately, well, it's both good and bad. It's good in that he lived his final days housed. It's bad in that he unfortunately passed away 1 month to the day of being housed. It's sort of a theme we see sometimes when people are very sick and they get housed. They tend to deteriorate rapidly sometimes. Oh, it makes me sad. So, we housed him a month ago, and that's where it kind of started. We got him in to see oncologists. We got him medicated. He was in and out of the hospital a lot. He had critically low potassium and magnesium, and we never did get an accurate diagnosis. Unfortunately, he passed away the day before his CAT scan. He was very sick. He got to the point where walking was difficult. He could not hold food and fluids down. And Friday the 3rd, we contacted 911 because when I got to his apartment, he was very sick. He couldn't pick his head up. He couldn't form thoughts. It was pretty bad. So I called AMR out. No, we're gonna take that out. I called an ambulance company to come out and respond. And because of COVID and the health system right now, they're so overwhelmed. It took 4.5 hours to get an ambulance out to come and get him. They took him to the hospital. I was not allowed to go with him because of COVID protocols. They changed almost daily. I wasn't allowed to come with him, and he couldn't speak when they got there, and I just kept saying, this is, what's been going on. They kept saying, well, he can speak for himself, and he just kept going, that's my advocate. He couldn't, that was all he could get out. So I was very frustrated with that process because, one, it took so long to get them there, and I had to get this man dressed. I had to clean his buckets of puke out, and they weren't very nice when they got there. They refused to take him on a stretcher. They made him walk down the stairs. I said, he cannot walk. They said, if he can go to the bathroom, he can walk. I said, as you can see, he's not using the restroom in the bathroom. And they were just very rude. So they took him to the hospital. They dropped him off out front, laughed about that. And then I wasn't allowed to sit in the emergency room with him. So I had gone home. I gave him my number and said, if they release you again, you just call. I'm going to come pick you up, bring you home. I don't want you trying to get home on the bus. I called the hospital at 10:30 at night. He still had not been seen. And like I said, he left with the ambulance at like 5 something at night. So at 10 something at night, he had still not been seen. I didn't receive a phone call from him that night. I called the next day. They told me that he had been admitted to the hospital. And I said, great, that's, I'm good. He's going to get some help. I kind of left it alone. I kept calling the room he was in. He didn't answer the phone, so I just figured he was sleeping or not able to answer the phone. So that Sunday, the 5th, I called up there again. They notified me he was in the COVID ward, and he had tested positive for COVID as well. So he was very sick. They had him on oxygen machines, but it wasn't really so much COVID that was making him sick. They told me he was severely dehydrated. He was malnutritioned. Told me that he was there for comfort care, that he would probably not leave the hospital. I asked if I could come see him, and at that time he wasn't allowed to have visitors because he was in ICU. So that's kind of where it was. I would call. Sometimes I could get him on the phone. Sometimes I couldn't. It was still very difficult to understand him. He couldn't put thoughts together. But we would call. I would pray with him. I did a Bible study with him on the phone one day. But I would call the nurse's desk every day to see how he was doing. So I was very surprised this last Saturday, which would have been, the 11th maybe? I don't remember. I called on Saturday. Well, he called me on Saturday, and he says, hey, baby, I'm going home. I said, huh? I was a little surprised to hear you're going home. I said, well, I don't know if I agree with that. I said, where is your nurse? And he's like, I don't know. He said, you'll have to call the nurse's desk. I said, okay, well, I'll be there in a little while to come and get you then. And he said, okay, I can't wait to see you. And I said, okay. So I hung up the phone and I called the nurse's desk and I said, hey, I'm a little confused why he's going home. He can't walk, he can't feed himself, he can't use the restroom. Oh no, he's fine. I said, I don't agree with this decision. He lives alone. I cannot be there 24/7. I can go out and check on him every day, but I can't be there with him all the time, and I don't feel like it's safe to send him home. So they didn't listen to me, and they sent him home. They would not allow me to come and get him because he had to isolate for 10 days, which took him till Monday what was Monday? Monday would have been the 13th, I think it was. He had to quarantine through that period in isolation. So they told me that they would take him home. So when I came to work on Monday, I still couldn't go and see him, but he was having a CAT scan on Wednesday with the oncologist. So Tuesday morning, I went and picked up, on the 14th, I went and picked up his medicine he needed to drink, and I was excited to get out and see him because I hadn't seen him since he came home from the hospital and quarantine was over. So I went and got his medicine. I went to his apartment and I knocked on the door and it was dark and he didn't answer, and I thought, well, maybe he's not home. And then I knocked again and, well, maybe he's sleeping, and we make excuses because I think we know. And then I went to the neighbor who he would knock on the wall sometimes when he needed help. I said, have you seen him? And he said, no, I hadn't. He said, I thought he was still at the hospital. And I said, no, he came home on Saturday. And he said, I haven't heard anything from him. And I thought, well, that's odd. I said, well, here's my number. If you see him, have him call me. And he's like, okay. And I went to walk off and I thought, I should probably get maintenance to come out and open the door. So we called maintenance and, oh man, we opened the door, and had passed, oh, I had to cut that. My client had passed away on the couch. He looked like he had been there for a couple days. So we, obviously I called 911, who tried to get me to do CPR, but he was definitely past that point. He was, there was no dignity in the way that he died, and he shouldn't have died at home. So they sent out the Gulfport Police Department, and they had the sweetest cop. I'm gonna have to call the chief and tell him how wonderful she was. And the ambulances and the fire trucks came, and the coroner came. The coroner said he probably passed away on Sunday, under 24 hours from leaving the hospital. And it just makes you sad because he didn't have any family, or children, or anybody to check on him, and you wonder if he suffered, and you wonder, should I have come? Should I have forced the hospital more? Should I have pushed harder? Should I have, there's a lot of guilt in it. But in the end, he didn't die on a dock, and he did die knowing that people cared. A lot of people cared about him, and all those people that reached out, they reach out still and ask, how he was. They would still go over and see him. He was not ever really alone. Like he would have been over there. So I always said I just wanted him off that silly dock and to have some peace, and I feel like he had that. At least he had that. He had a place. He wanted to be at home. He hated being at the hospital because he couldn't bring his cigarettes with him. So he was in his home. It was his home, and around his things. And I think there's a lot of peace in that, for me, to know that we had those final Bible studies, and we had those conversations, and we had those prayers together, and I know that he's at peace and he's not in pain, because if you ever saw this man, he was suffering greatly. Cancer is painful, and it's more painful when you slowly die of it. And he was, only 114 pounds when he passed away. He was like skin and bones. So I'm glad he's at peace. I'm gonna miss him. This kind of spurred back into doing this really cool memorial in December, so we're really looking forward to that, honoring all these people that we lose, that we really care about and cherish and honor, and other people care about. People on the streets knew him, they know these people that pass away, so I'm really looking forward to being a part of that. it's both a happy and a sad update, because I'm happy he's at peace and sad that we lost him. So that's what happened. So that's all I got on that.